Welcome friends to another r/malicious compliance video. I'm not one to make people comply to something, but I will ask if you could hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. That said, our first story of the day is by Anonymous529. Type exactly what the patient says. Okay. I used to work in scheduling for a walk-in medical clinic. One day we all got called to a meeting and were told that too many patients were being scheduled for something different than what they actually needed to be seen for, and that we had to type in exactly what they said or get written up. A few weeks in, I was able to cue malicious compliance. Someone came in to be seen for a pus-E shoulder, so I created the appointment for pus-E shoulder. Almost immediately, the nursing staff called me back to ask what the appointment was for, so I told them it was exactly what it said. They lightened the demand to type in exactly what a patient said after that. Had I been allowed to schedule it the way I wanted, I would have put possible abscess left shoulder, or right shoulder, whatever one it was, as we couldn't diagnose at the front desk. Oh, what kind of shoulder now? You said a patient came in with what? Let's say you got yelled at and said to type exactly what the patient says. If somebody came in and said something ridiculous you know would be way off base, would you go ahead and type it in anyways? Or would you know it's ridiculous and to type in something much more appropriate? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Our next story is by Gimme the Goods, Mini Malice. We just changed accounting systems at my hotel, and I was told to stop one process and wait for further instruction from my general manager because they didn't know what reports they needed, the settings, or the names, but that it's definitely a different format. The processes are saving specific reports with specific settings and specific formats with a specific name. In other words, I can't just fudge it or it'll mess up our daily, monthly, quarterly, and annual finances. Further instruction came yesterday from accounting, and the only information I got is, these are the reports you need to save. But it was only the reports post-save after they've been renamed, so I have no idea what she needs. I emailed her right away and asked for a list of the reports, the settings she needs, the format it needs to be saved in, and then to tell me which reports get the names shown in the email. All I got back was, save them as you have been. Cue Mini Malice. I know this is all wrong because I've been told it is, but I'm saving my reports exactly like I used to. Old names, old settings, old formats, everything. The real malice is that most of these reports you have to pull same day. You cannot regenerate them tomorrow, it has to be done today. She's also a month and a half backed up, so she won't figure it out till Thanksgiving. Good luck uploading all your PDFs and Excel workbooks when it's specifically requiring a Word document. I mean, it's all full of disorganization. OP got told exactly what to do at the very end, which is, save it the way you have been, so when the proverbial poop hits the fan, it's not gonna be OP's fault. They got written emails to back them up. Our next story is by Heinz Dog, Wife Malicious Compliance. So little background. Me, married 12 years now, have that usual bachelor type furniture that I've been holding on to for a long time, even if not really used. Wife wants to get rid of it, per normal stereotype. For the record, expensive black leather lazy boy chair, comfy as freak. So we're getting ready for work today, and I tell one of my kids to get off the floor and go sit in my chair. In a corner of a kind of sitting area outside the master bedroom, being reminded of the chair, I complained to the wife about it being in such a useless spot. No TV, etc. But there's no room for it in the living room as we have a gigantic sectional that takes up the whole area in front of the TV. The wife says, if you move it, it can stay. Cue malicious compliance. Within 90 seconds of her saying that, the chair is out of the alcove and right in front of my big screen, blocking off view to the TV for the sectional. I mean center cut, 10 feet back, no obstruction to reclining, perfect. She complains about her intent, but I suggest that she be more specific in the future. Admittedly a minor malicious compliance, and one that won't last long, but it made us laugh. All I really know is, in situations like these where you try to hold a win over the wife's head, it can very often not be the best thing for you. Whether it's now or later, you'll come to find out how disastrous saying, no, you said this and I did it, therefore I'm right. In the end, we'll see who's truly right. This next story is by Best Zigs NA, Wax On, Wax On. I used to be a human resources specialist in the army. At the time of this story, I was about 19. I generally did my job well and passed my fitness exams with flying colors, but I was very socially awkward back then. If there was a joke being made, I was the butt of it. I was basically Radar from MASH, but less endearing and no ESP. I was also frequently on extra duty. Extra duty basically extends your workday several hours past when everyone else goes home. It was a punishment for constantly being late, which was a statement I was making because the office clock was 5 minutes fast and nobody cared enough to have it fixed. They never fixed it. I even got in trouble for being 5 minutes early because 5 minutes early is 10 minutes late. During extra duty, I was given many meaningful tasks like scrubbing and power washing concrete for no reason, painting entire offices for no reason, picking up pine cones for no reason, sweeping the parking lot for no reason, and my most hated chore of all, buffing. Every night I buffed the same floor. Every night I applied several coats of finish to the same floor. I applied over 20 gallons of floor finish to that cerulean kitchen-sized tile floor in just a 2-month span. And it was never good enough. Every morning my company first sergeant would come in and say the same thing. "What the heck have you been doing all night, OP? If I can't see my reflection, it's not good enough. It should be like looking in a mirror." Bear in mind, I had no clue what I was doing, and they didn't really give me any detailed instructions. I had no idea which buffer pads to use, how much finish to use, how many coats were needed, etc. One night, I was approaching my breaking point because I had just stripped the floor for the first time the previous night and nearly passed out, when he decided to throw me yet another curveball. "You ever wax a floor before, OP?" He hands me a can of wax. I say, "No, First Sergeant, I haven't." He takes the can back, opens it, then scoops out a small amount with a rag, proceeding to spread it over the tile in a circular motion by hand until it disappears. I did not make a Karate Kid joke at the time. I was too busy explaining that I didn't have enough time to do the entire process, plus tile by tile waxing before the night was over. He didn't care. I got the usual response to my protests. "Get it done." You want me to fully buff, finish, and wax a floor in roughly the same amount of time it takes me to just buff it? And with no prior experience or instruction? Cue malicious compliance. I didn't bother asking how much wax to use or how many times I should go over each tile. I didn't want to know. At that point, I didn't care. What I did know was that skaters often waxed curbs in my hometown to allow the skateboard to slide on it, also known as grinding. I sped through my usual buffing and didn't even bother with more than one coat of finish. I then broke out the wax can and rag and began my new task. I waxed that floor. Then I waxed it some more. I waxed that floor until my arms ached, and I waxed unevenly. Some areas got way more wax than others. 9 p.m. rolls around, and my sergeant comes and locks up so I can leave. The next morning, I came in after our usual morning fitness routine and sat down at my desk, which happened to directly face the doorway to the floor I regularly slaved over. I could see a small portion of the room, but was not exposed enough for people to see me. I should mention that this floor was in the center of the building. If you wanted to get to any of the offices in the company HQ, including my first sergeant's office and even my own, you had to walk through that central room. As it turned out, quite a few people needed to walk through that room on this particular morning, and they were met by some rather challenging terrain. It was quite comical to see people in combat boots slipping all over the place like they were walking on ice, then gingerly trying to walk across like they needed walkers. But the best part was when I heard the frantic squeaking of boots followed by a, "Dang it, OP, never let him wax the floor again." And that's exactly what happened. Never did get feedback on the reflection though. No fellow soldiers were injured as a result of this. One thing I've learned is if you have chores, one of the best ways to get out of that chore or to stop being given that chore so much is to just do a terrible job at it and think you did great. If you get given laundry duty and afterwards every piece of clothing is pink, they're probably not going to give it to you again, especially if they don't have time to give you instructions. So in this situation where they don't want to take the time to help you at all, it's not a terrible idea to purposely tank. Our next story is by Arcanine's Firepower. The only poop you need to know is desktop repair. You got it. So I was working as a supervisor in a computer repair center. As the title suggests, I work in the desktop repair center. After months of handling on-hold units, paperwork, storage, organization, and training, my boss and I get into an argument. I tell him I'm underpaid for the work I'm doing. His only response is, I am too. So when he asks me why the department is crooked, I point out that the director of the project said my department was under renovation. I told him, we're under renovations and no one has told me anything. In fact, I don't know crap. He then tells me, the only crap you need to know is desktop repair. Important note, I was working on the laptop repair department before I got moved. So I was working on laptops when I get told this. I finished working on the laptops, cleaned up my desk, and started working on the desktops, letting everything else fall behind. So far, the storage is basically non-existent. The organization there is now a nightmare as it's in 2 places and not labeled. I've stopped training people and stopped working on laptops. This had to frustrate managers, lead to loss in goals, loss in revenue, bad reviews from company's owners, and 3 people leaving my department. Although those 3 were already fully trained techs. I'm still waiting to see the further fallout, but I'm also looking for new work, as my boss's actions are quite despicable. But overall, I think we lost about 10 grand because of a simple promotion. The beauty about IT and hardware repair work is it's almost guaranteed to constantly have a steady supply of demand. Unless Apple takes over the world and demands that only they can repair their stuff, but that's another thing. The point is, there's almost guaranteed to be another job out there that fits your skill set that's better than working with these people that underpay you, talk down to you, downplay your skill set. It's definitely a situation you want to look for a better job. This next story is by David R. Carroll. All I wanted to do was buy a Christmas present. It all started when I wanted to get my brother a watch for Christmas. I find the watch on the store site and note that it's not in stock at my local store, so I buy it and take the pickup in-store option. A few days later, I get a notification and head to the store. I show the clerk the email and the credit card that I used to buy the watch. He goes and gets it and is about to hand it to me when the manager intervenes. The manager says, I'll need to see some photo ID. I say, I don't have any. They say, well, I can't give you the watch. I say, how do you think I got this email and credit card? They say, photo ID. I say, what the freak? If you won't give me the watch, I want my money back. Manager says, no problem. So I get my money back in cash. On the way home, a malicious compliance scheme dawns on me. I went to the store site and noticed that my local store now had exactly one of the watch I wanted in stock. So the next day, I go back to the store and ask the same clerk if he has this watch. He says yes and sells it to me. My brother really liked his gift. This is definitely that kind of thing where you have an argument and then later on in the shower, you're like, oh, if I just thought this one phrase, I could have destroyed them in that moment. The beauty of situations like this where they're like, no ID, sorry. So you just refund it, cancel it, and then say, yeah, I'd like to buy that. What are they going to do? Demand ID for buying something in person? And our final story of the day is by many books. Casino staff fall ill. Recently, the casino in the city where I live was trying to cope with COVID and the restrictions on opening. After being closed for a while, they were allowed to open partially. They brought back enough staff to handle the reduced capacity. These were all unionized positions and contracts had to be adjusted accordingly. Soon after this, the restrictions were eased even more and more workers were needed. Due to the union contract, all employees were offered the positions, both the current ones and the additional ones. Naturally, employees who wanted to come back to work were prioritized by seniority, and if you were already working, you could lose your current position if enough workers with more seniority returned. This was accepted and understood by all. However, 2 weeks before the new schedule, the working employees were advised that their accumulated sick days, most at about 4 days, would be lost for any employee who would not be coming back because they were bumped by a more senior employee. Furthermore, these unused sick days would not be paid. You guessed it, in those 2 weeks, every non-returning employee came down with the pay me virus that coincidentally lasted as long as their banked sick days. The casino stayed open, but at about half of the already reduced capacity. Oh, that darn pay me pandemic that's going around. We already have enough to deal with the COVID pandemic, but now the pay me pandemic? I do hear though that the best solution for the pay me virus is getting a lot of greens. So as long as they're getting those greens, they should be right back up and healthy right away. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.